one who just decides.
Right.
So if he decides, he wakes up tomorrow and says, I think it's bad for morale, it's bad for cohesiveness, for there to be Black people in the military, Latino people in the military, just in her hypothetical scenario, what's the difference between that and what we're seeing here?
I mean, are you really going to go down this ridiculous road?
I'm
sorry.
This is ridiculous. It is a ridiculous argument.
Well, okay.
What's happening, everybody? Last week, Scott Jennings was back on Newsnight with Abby Phillip. Maybe it was just me, but I think I can feel Scott Jennings and Shermichael Singleton's discomfort in this segment. CNN trotted in an ex-military trans person to discuss the Supreme Court's recent ruling that upholds Donald Trump's executive order requiring members of the United States military to adhere to the standards aligned with their biological sex and the immediate discharge of service members diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Like the thumbnail alluded to, this whole segment was uncomfortable and unnecessary. You'll see what I mean. Anyway, let's watch Scott Jennings and Shermichael Singleton delicately explain the truth to a panel of civil rights champions. Let's go.
But if they can't produce evidence that this actually does, in fact, have an impact on readiness, I mean, how is this not then just discrimination?
Well, it's the opinion of the commander-in-chief, who, according to our Constitution, is the head of the military. I mean, regardless of anyone's opinion or anybody's, whatever side you're on, whether you're for it or against it, at some juncture, the president is the commander-in-chief of the military, and he has and should have broad latitude to determine how the armed forces should be operated. And so I think that's what he's doing here. I think that's ultimately what the court said today, was that the president is the commander-in-chief, and we gotta respect that.
But I mean, to her point, if there's not a downside, and it's been going on for years now, and I mean, I'm just presenting your argument to them.
Yeah.
What is the argument other than Trump, Hegseth just doesn't want trans people in the military?
Well, I mean, I think that the president, we'll ultimately see. I think that's why the court is allowing the president to move forward with this until it works itself through the court system. Maybe the Supreme Court will be the final arbiter here to say, yeah or nay, you can do this. But ultimately, I think the court is showcasing deference to the executive, saying that, look, you're the president, you're over the military. You do, for the most part, get to sort of dictate the standards of our military. And I don't really see how you can push back against that. Again, we'll see what happens in the court.
I can.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I can. What if the president wakes up tomorrow and says, I don't want any Black people in the military? Do we give deference to him on that? Well, no, wait a second. It's not ridiculous. It's not ridiculous because you're discriminating against a group of people in a very similar way. No,
I knew you were going to say that, but it's
excuse me. Well, I'm glad you.
I'm going to leave this one alone today.
I'm curious. Why is it ridiculous? I mean, you just said the president should be the one who just decides.
Right.
So if he decides, he wakes up tomorrow and says, I think it's bad for morale, it's bad for cohesiveness, for there to be Black people in the military, Latino people in the military, just in her hypothetical scenario, what's the difference between that and what we're seeing here?
I mean, are you really going to go down this ridiculous road?
I'm sorry.
This is ridiculous. It is a ridiculous argument.
Well, okay.
The president,
what they've already
the president and the Secretary of Defense have an argument here. They believe that readiness and unit cohesion and overall operations of the military are impacted by this. That is their opinion, and that is the opinion of the commander-in-chief, who the Constitution gives broad latitude to run the armed forces. So that's their opinion. You're allowed to have one. You're allowed to have one. You're also allowed to run for president and become commander-in-chief yourself. But until you do, he's the commander-in-chief.
I have to just say, I didn't hear an answer to the hypothetical, right? I just didn't hear it. Okay, the definition of discrimination, according to the American Psychological Association, discrimination is the unfair or prejudicial treatment of people or groups based on characteristics such as race, gender, age, or sexual orientation. What is the difference between, prohibiting certain groups, like transgender people, from serving versus, people based on their race or even their gender, frankly?
I personally think there's a difference, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, I will
do
say...
Do you believe that race and... Are you saying that the quality of race and the quality of transgender are the same?
I'm just asking the question because I think you're making there's a distinction, but you're not explaining why.
No, I'm asking, you guys brought up the hypothetical. Are you arguing that someone's race is the same as someone choosing to become transgender?
But your argument, you've made the argument.
I feel like this segment was put together to set up Scott and Shermichael. They're trying to get Scott and Shermichael to simply tell the truth because they know if they do, it'll be national news that these dirty Republicans are monsters that hate all trans people. That's why you'll see throughout the video they keep badgering them over and over. What's the difference between race and trans? I mean, look at everyone else on the panel. They're sitting there with bated breath. They're champing at the bit and thinking, say it, say it. Since Scott and Shermichael understandably didn't want to get canceled for explaining the obvious difference, I will. Race is a physical characteristic. Gender dysphoria is a mental illness. Because if you apply the same logic to other mental illnesses, the argument falls apart. By their logic, if a schizophrenic wants to serve their country, who are we to discriminate? And by the way, despite what this person thinks, I have no animus towards him. Seems like a perfectly nice person. And I'll tell you what, if I interacted with him in public and there was mutual respect, I'd call him her. Not because I'm mandated to, but because that's how I see him presenting himself. I would never go out of my way to belittle or hurt someone, but that's just me. And everyone else can address him however they want. I mean, at this point, it just is what it is. And the great thing is, we live in a country where you can live your life however you choose. What you can't do, though, is expect all of us to sign off on your delusion. And your rights can't come at the expense of others. And if anyone is still doubting that it's a mental illness, we all know it was downgraded from mental illness to mental diagnosis in the DSM. But why? One of the reasons cited was to remove the stigma from being trans. When in the history of medicine or psychology has there ever been another case where they recategorized a medical condition in an effort not to hurt people's feelings? Because that's exactly what we're talking about here. Lastly, and really quickly, I'll get right back to the video. You know why else they kept it as a medical diagnosis instead of removing it altogether? So a bunch of unscrupulous medical doctors and psychiatrists could still bill exorbitant amounts of money to cut these folks' genitals off, screw up our children's natural growth process, and keep these folks in, albeit the wrong kind, therapy for the rest of their lives. It's a business. So Abby wants me to use the definition of discrimination from the very folks that recategorize this mental illness. Get out of here. Back to it.
Twice that the commander-in-chief's opinion is all that matters. You've said that twice now.
Well,
so
under the Constitution, yes.
So if he wakes up tomorrow and says it's not okay to be gay or lesbian in serve, because that's his opinion, there's nothing to back that up. They meet the physical standards, they meet the intellectual standards, they have voluntarily decided to serve their country, to give their life for this country. So many of us don't have to. That it's the opinion without any basis in fact that's what matters more than the Constitution of equal rights and equal protection.
He has an opinion because he won the
The good
election.
news is, and Elena, you pointed this out, this is going through the court system. The other side has the opportunity to present evidence.
Except for tomorrow, there's going to be thousands of people who wake up and get processed out. The harm will be done.
And I certainly understand that. But again, there's still an opportunity for it to continue through the proper process.
Right, but they wake up tomorrow without a job, being removed from their commands. Operational readiness will be impacted. And so there's commands that are going to be left without leaders. There's going to be real life implications for theaters around the world where our military is protecting this country. And for what end?
Elena, I guess my point is, if a strong enough evidence is presented throughout the court process, all the way up to SCOTUS, and it's ultimately believed, okay, hey, the other side has enough evidence where we can't rule in favor of the executive, then the executive, I believe, would respect that decision. But we have to allow this thing to move forward and see what
Can I ask you a question? Because I think this is relevant. You know, Elena was serving, left because of this policy. How many people is it okay to lose who are competent, who are doing their jobs because for reasons like that? I mean, at the time, she could have been a gay or lesbian, and it probably would have been the same result as well. I mean, I think that's why ultimately they ended Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
I mean, I think
It's discrimination.
I think ultimately the commander-in-chief and the secretary of defense have to decide comprehensively about troop levels, troop readiness, and unit cohesion, and overall recruitment. They're actually quite happy with recruitment right now.
But there's never been a military standard that transgender people have not met. So the military standards have not been lowered for people who are transgender. And I think that's the issue here. And the courts that have looked at this issue in depth have said this is pure animus, that there is no evidence of this. So if you actually take the rhetoric out of it and look at the issue at its heart, all the courts say the same thing. So I think that's the travesty here.
I believe the president has the constitutional right to do this, and I also think you have the constitutional right to make your case on it, and everybody's going to be in court about it, and I think you should continue to make your case.
Sorry, but you also talked about unit cohesion, and that's exactly the same kind of argument that they made against integrating the military when Harry Truman did it. I'm sorry, it's the same argument. It's the same.
I mean, is she wrong about that though? I mean, she is right about that.
Did not want to serve
I'm aware.
White people didn't want to serve the black people because of unit cohesion. So now you're saying gay people shouldn't serve with straight people.
We only have a couple seconds. Michael, I see that you're frustrated that she made that argument, but is she wrong that unit cohesion was used as an excuse to keep the military segregated for a long time?
I think we should
and
focus
also
on,
don't ask, don't tell when it comes to discriminating against gay and lesbian people.
We should focus on the issue at hand. That's what I think.
Same argument.
But no, we should focus on the issue at hand. I don't know why we keep going to bringing up race. Let's just focus on the issue at hand.
Look, it's race, sexual orientation. We've seen this twice, right? In two major junctures for the military. I'm just wondering if she is drawing parallels here between the arguments that are being made to maintain this policy.
I reject those parallels. That's my answer. I reject the parallels. I think they're ludicrous parallels.
And let me also say, without an ounce of levity, just like I admire and respect and appreciate every single one of you that served in the military, I feel the same way about this person. But they really need to stop talking about race and gay and lesbian, whatever else, and just speak for themselves. I guarantee that there are people that fall into those categories, even trans, that are saying, don't drag me into this. Why is this now the fight of a gay person or a black person? I can't speak to it because I'm neither. But isn't that patronizing that the left, with their identity politics, puts all ethnic minorities and everyone that's not heterosexual into the same category? As a matter of fact, when did gay folks sign off on being part of the LGBTQ community? Personally, I don't know how that works because I've never been part of a community. Heck, I wouldn't even know where to find that community. Maybe I'm just out of the loop. What do you guys think about this conversation? Is it not as cut and dry as I think it is? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you like watching videos of Scott Jennings doing his thing, then click on one of the videos that's about to pop up on your screen. Also, I'm getting active on X, so I think on the screen somewhere, it's a little too small, but follow me on X. That's what I'm trying to say. Otherwise, as always, thank you so much for taking a couple minutes out of your day to watch my video. It really means a lot to me. Never ever forget, Jesus loves you. See you guys.